On the way from Bucharest to Sibiu, we have a wonderful view of the Carpathians. Then we leave the mountainous area and come to a gently hilly landscape. We concentrate on the project ahead with Elijah and talk about the schedule for the coming days. Nico and a co-worker will meet us. The drive from Sibiu to Hosman takes about 25 minutes. We will check into our room in the Casa Stella Matutina, and we are able to discuss with Edward the most important things to consider for the next few days. In the music school, we will also be able to choose the instruments that we need to take along to Nokrich.
Und so bin ich selber eigentlich jeden Tag vom Projekt überrascht. Wir wollten einmal da leben und spüren, wie das ist, mit einer Gruppe, von der alle sagen, sie sind uns so fremd und sie tun sich so schwer in Europa oder wir tun uns schwer mit ihnen in Europa. Nicht über sie zu reden, sondern mit ihnen zu reden und vor allem mit ihnen zu leben.
Wir fühlen uns eigentlich noch nie fremd, sondern immer gleich willkommen. Und das liegt schon auch daran, dass unsere Freunde, die jetzt mit uns leben, auch ehemalige Straßenkinder, so leicht Kontakte finden. Und dadurch, glaube ich, gelingt auch viel mehr, wenn man kein Fremdkörper ist, der sich da irgendwie viereckig in etwas Rundes einfügt. Dann kommt man einfach zusammen und spürt auch, was die Menschen brauchen.
Und daraus ist alles andere entstanden. Jetzt sind wir halt in 4 Dörfern aktiv, immer nach einem ähnlichen Muster. Es gibt überall ein Sozialzentrum, wo eine Gruppe, ein Team da ist und die Leute begleitet und die Ideen, die Wünsche, die Anliegen aufnimmt und zugleich mit ihnen halt die Lösungen sucht. Konkret heißt es mit den Kindern lernen, ihren Hunger stillen, die Eltern beraten und vor allem mit den Eltern Häuser zu bauen.
Immer der eine Schwerpunkt ist jetzt das neue Zentrum in Nokrich. Da müssen wir alle Kräfte hineinlegen. Und das versuche ich eben, indem wir einfach gute Leute dorthin setzen und sie von allen Seiten begleiten. Also ich arbeite gerade auch sehr daran, dass wir eine gute Mitarbeiterausbildung haben.
Eine zweite Sache, die bei uns wichtig ist, ist die Musik und die Kreativität, an der ihr ja beteiligt seid. Weil der Mut und die Kraft, etwas zu verändern, beginnt nicht mit der Disziplin und der Ordnung, sondern mit der Freude. Und als Generallinie ist nicht für sie und nicht über sie, für sie arbeiten oder über sie reden, sondern mit ihnen leben und mit ihnen sprechen und den Weg finden.
We started our theater work with children from the social projects of Romania in 2005 with Concordia in Aricest, which is close to Bucharest.
Also for Elijah, we did a one-day music drama project last year.
This year, we have 3 days to work on a play with a group of Roma children of different ages, as well as 3 educators and the music school director.
Our goal is to prepare the educators for putting up similar projects independently or with a team of the other social centers.
Ja, das kann man schon machen, ist einfacher. Weil wenn man jeden Tag essen will, muss es rein und raus.
Ja, das ist richtig. Dann lassen wir die Tische hinten.
Here, we start our 3-day musical theater project based on the African story, The Song of the Colorful Birds. Over the course of the next 2 mornings, we have time to talk to Lily, Georgiana, Alina, and Edvard about our method of working.
Everybody's gone. We can have a reflection and talk.
It is especially important that the adults are on one hand observers and on the other hand take leading functions and roles in the play.
Sali bonami, sali bonami, sali, sali, sali bonami. Maybe it was
Cece cum adende.
Although they won't have much chance to experience self-awareness in playing or acting in the next few days, it's at least a start, which can motivate the workers.
The co-workers should get to know the story well and realize how we want to model that first afternoon with the children.
So we will work together to make suggestions, to listen to the ideas of the children. So this is an exchange. Yeah? So also we can bring in an idea. So you can bring in an idea. Oh, I have an idea. Really, not I tell you what to do, but you as a person, you have an idea. No?
To use that material, this is for the trees and the water, yeah.
But here we can do for yellow, for
Stupid, yeah. So like this could be the crocodile walking like this. Yeah. One in the middle, moving like this, you know. Very simple.
What can you see here? Ah, yes, that's a crocodile. Yeah, we also have a crocodile. The birds have them also in their colors. Yeah.
Before we start our musical theater project in the social center with the children in the afternoon, they get to know us in the school as the clown duo Manushka and Michelino. The atmosphere is getting quite exciting, and the space for the children and the space for us as performers is very limited.
Hey! Und jest Manuszka?
Nonetheless, everyone is enjoying it, and we are all experiencing special moments.
Okay. Låt oss se vad. Prijeto nul meu.
As the door to the social center, Casa Susanna, opens, the children stream in full of expectations. Alina tries to monitor which children are present. Instead of the expected 12, 20 appear. But we don't want to turn anybody away. We have a wide spectrum of ages, from 4 to 16 years old.
After the nonverbal introductory game, where everybody is participating freely, we are greeting each other in different ways and thereby already take on different roles. Through taking on animal roles, we are coming closer to our theme.
I make quite an impression as I point out the most important rule of the game. When we act, we never touch anyone directly. We mime, for example, the attack of the lion.
All animals of our story can be seen on cards. We allow for enough time so all children can recognize and name the animals before we distribute the cards. There are several cards for each animal, and by observing closely, all the players can find the various animal groups.
Now we are preparing the presentation for the groups, and everybody is walking on the presentation street. With the first stage entry, of course, they receive their first round of applause.
Now it is time to introduce to the students the many instruments which they have already viewed longingly. We briefly introduce the sounds and how to play the instruments.
As I walk around with my drum and let everyone play it, and the children mimic the sound of the cymbal with arm movements, everyone becomes active.
After the children have had a chance to try out the various instruments, we immediately start working on accompanying the animals with sounds, and ask for which animal we could use the kalimba.
He's moving without noise.
The children quickly name other sounds for various animals. Through this, more children can play an instrument and move with their animal group.
This phase of play is exciting and stimulating for the children. The short exercise in relaxation helps also to move into the next phase, the introduction of the story of the Song of the Colorful Birds.
With big pictures from the book, the children are told the story. Edward presents it immediately in Romanian, so there is no time lost in translation. We integrate the Song of the Five Birds by singing it together.
After this intense introduction, we are in need of a break. We hang up the pictures so that in the course of the later work, we can refer to them, and we briefly discuss how we will proceed after the break.
And on we go. We start with an African greeting song. everyone sings along heartily. The accompaniment with the drums, however, is difficult for the children, but they are motivated to learn it.
The triangles are being used for the second part of the song, which should be sung softly. This is a finer nuance in the interpretation, which is soon swallowed up by the powerful temperaments and the joy of playing and singing.
For our African overture, in addition to the song, we need some African sounds.
Water drops falling down from the leaves. Some drops.
We collect ideas, and finally, I take an African walk to listen to all the different sounds.
Now it is time to have a rehearsal of the overture. It is already working quite nicely.
In the last part of the first afternoon, we are working with the movements and the dance motifs of the 5 birds. Many children should have the possibility to try out movement motifs, both alone and in groups. I model some examples of movements.
Albastru. Și voi urmăriți pe cea albastră, bine? Albastru.
A lot has happened. The children and also we adults are a little tired. In the final circle, we come together quietly and say goodbye by singing, goodbye and a kiss for you.
A radiant morning greets us. After a 10-minute drive, we turn just shortly before the village Nockrich, and by the main street, we come to the social center.
This morning is about looking back on our first afternoon with the children and a constructive preview of our coming afternoon.
The restlessness in the group particularly concerns us, and we try to find out what the adults in charge could do so that more calmness and attention would be possible. We must counter the high energy level of the children with our own calmness. I asked the group how they thought my behavior was.
We think that it's better.
Other parts of our language.
Edward sums up very well what he noticed. He saw that Manuela often used non-verbal gestures and glances to have contact with the children and spoke in a quiet voice throughout.
Now we turn to planning the afternoon and ask how we should start.
I would suggest to leave a little bit of time in the beginning for the kids to play around with instruments, for them to get it all or as much out of their system as they can, for them to be able to focus a little bit more afterwards. This is just a suggestion, you know better.
We take up the idea happily and explain the rules of the game.
So that they really know before that they will have the chance to change. And then we make a little conductor game.
Yes.
So, for example, me, I'm also in the circle, but I don't have an instrument.
One place without instrument.
One instrument. And then we play all, and I conduct, woo, and they understand immediately, loud and check, tag, and then suddenly I say, okay, get up.
One place
Go
to the right.
To the right.
Everybody has a new instrument.
And then we change place.
And then they can see, okay, I have to move 3 times, then I'm at the drum.
And then we can do that probably not 20 times, but 7 or 8 times. And then they could play many instruments. Yeah? So this could be a beginning. And they can play really free, not with a rhythm, but just playing. And
It's called conductor game.
This is a good game just to start that everybody can have.
There isn't much time left before the lunch break. We begin with some necessary preparations, like making some simple masks.
Das ist schon besser.
We couldn't know that the course of the day's activities would bring us to our limits. Everything was so well thought out, and yet the reaction of the children shows us that our rules are too much for them.
Every child was only interested in playing the instrument of his or her choice. The instruction given that in the course of the game the instruments would be changed continuously was spoken into the wind.
Finally, we start with the conducting game. But even with the first changing of the instruments, it's already caused a bit of restlessness. It takes a while before the girl next to me notices that conducting is also fun.
Since the next change caused chaos again, and the children only looked for their desired instrument and could not remember the rules of the game, Manuela needed to stop the game. The instruments were laid aside until the children were calmed down, and Edward and Manuela again explained the rules of the game in a more persuasive manner.
Și când la următorul, încă un pas, și când la următorul, pas și tot așa. Și toată lumea cântă la toate instrumentele. Nu-i mai bine așa? Da! Jos, toată lumea.
The instruments have been distributed again, and Nico is our next conductor.
Nevedem, dirigente Niku. Niku chef. Niku chef.
As restless as the children were a few minutes ago, they are now just as eager to start singing their familiar African greeting song.
The first jungle crowns are being distributed. The children are excited about them, and the repetition of the drumming and the playing of the triangles works a lot better than yesterday.
After we've distributed the costumes and instruments for the African sounds, Edward and I quiet down the children, and preparations for the overture take their course.
The first run-through of the overture is working quite well. Most children are able to orient themselves and act quite independently.
Now our colorful African cloths, the capulanas, can come into use. The three groups, under the leadership of Lily, Georgiana, and Alina, are getting dressed, and it's a lot more fun to move to the song.
We are changing the theme. The children who want to play the 5 birds show us again their movements. Then they receive their costumes. Nico is the only one of the boys who can be persuaded to try it once.
Ciao, Pause.
Cut some losses as it goes for children.
The educators and Edward are quite worn out. In the break, we try to explain how we want to proceed. We will not throw any of the kids out of the group, but will rather try to bring about a better orientation with calm and clear directions.
Right away, I make a new constructive suggestion about how the birds could be placed for their common dance, so that their different motives can be best noticed.
Now most of the children are coming in. We are not quite complete, but that is not really disadvantageous for the phase of distributing the roles.
Okay.
Once more, I try to promote calm non-verbally, and then we cast the role of the farmer. He's to try and see how he can chase away the birds while they are just repeating their own song phrase over and over again.
That is not so easy for the farmer. We all try to provoke him, but he mostly holds back on gestures and words. Nonetheless, the role seems to please him and he stays with it until the performance.
Now the children are supposed to learn the rhythmic speech piece of the birds. Georgiana says it once, and the children listen with interest. Then we work mostly on the text, which needs to be spoken softly, since the birds do not want the other ones to hear what they are thinking.
Again, a change of roles has taken place as our little green bird is giving over her role to an older girl. And right away, we try out the phrase with the new cast. Now our red bird girl is back again and everybody helps her to learn the text. The final complete cast shows the scene again to the other children who are now the audience.
But I'm not quite happy yet. I gather the educators and discuss the most important parts of the scene with them. We act out the scene for the children and are rewarded by immediate applause.
Did the birds see what we did?
The casting is mostly complete. For the snake, the lion, the monkeys, and the elephant, enthusiastic children can be found easily and can be equipped with costumes and masks. Out of the snake pantyhose, 2 snake arms are quickly made with scissors.
In rapid succession, all the birds visit the farmer. Each respective animal announces their visit.
Fly to the farmer. Tete cooler, tete cooler, ba 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 ba
The end of the scene is when all the birds are hungry and have to go to sleep, since the farmer did not like their solo songs. This is Max Shire. He has been by our side for the last few days. Today he asked us for an interview and begins his questioning.
Im heutigen Unterricht und im gestrigen, was geht euch jetzt so durch den Kopf, was noch wichtig ist für morgen und ja, wie seht ihr gerade die Situation, wie ist es bisher gelaufen, was erwartet ihr euch von morgen?
Ich bin jetzt eigentlich doch ganz zufrieden, was wir in diesen 2 kurzen Nachmittagen haben schon erreichen können. Wir sind sogar heute weitergekommen, als ich dachte, obwohl heute ja wirklich ein sehr turbulenter Nachmittag war. Es war extrem laut und lebendig und ich hatte zwischendurch manchmal das Gefühl, machen wir einfach Pause und lassen wir das Ganze irgendwie. Jetzt so nach diesem zweiten Nachmittag bin ich eigentlich ziemlich guter Dinge und habe das Gefühl, das wird morgen eine ganz schöne kleine Aufführung werden.
Ich fand ja auch heute, dass es ab dem Moment wirklich Fahrt aufgenommen hat, wie wir daran angeknüpft hatten, was gestern Nachmittag schon das Endergebnis war. Also wie wir dann die 5 Vögel hatten. Heute, ab dem Moment, ging es wirklich in die Geschichte rein und vorwärts. Und da waren auch die ganzen Störungen und alles nicht mehr so massiv. Dann hast du gemerkt, sie haben auch alle Interesse und Spaß, sie haben gelacht, sie haben geguckt, sie haben auch kommentiert. Also alles, was dann passierte, hatte schon mit dem Thema und der Entwicklung zu tun.
Ja, auch als wir den Bauern besetzt haben, denn das war so ein schüchterner Junge, so ein zurückhaltender Junge, der aber sich dann doch sehr gefreut hat, dass er diese Aufgabe bekommen hat.
Vor allem hat es eine Gestaltung angenommen, es wurde eine Geschichte präsentiert, die sie selber auf einmal selber sehen konnten.
Und das wird natürlich jetzt morgen noch stärker. Es wird sicher auch wieder turbulent sein, aber wenn wir noch genauer darauf schauen, dass wirklich jedes Kind dann seinen Platz hat, die Sachen, die es braucht, bei sich am Platz hat, ich glaube, dass das dann noch mehr die Kinder noch sicherer macht und noch besser strukturiert.
There is only a minute of time to have a mini rehearsal on the street for the next clown performance in the elementary school in Hosman.
In Hosman, we also meet a lively audience and enjoy the pleasant gathering of children and adults.
We are again on the way to Nokrich. We enjoy the short trip through the countryside and are looking forward to the 3rd afternoon with the children and our performance.
Ready, set, go. At the start, each child looks for his place. That works quite well with some help. After a short time, all are sitting and we announce the performance. We start by distributing the costumes and help them to put them on.
All the children receive their costumes quickly and assist one another putting them on. Finally, we distribute the instruments and place them on the carpet in front of the children. It is hard for the children to contain themselves. The moment they feel unobserved, they snatch up the drums.
We try to help the children work on their own with structural help. But in the course of the rehearsal, it becomes quite clear that they are not used to that.
We notice again that the work situation is made more difficult through our inability to speak directly to the children and our need to rely on translation. That takes a lot of concentration for the children, and especially the younger children seem overburdened.
Each bird had a movement.
During the 2 preceding afternoons, many of the children contributed beautiful ideas for the bird dance motifs. Now they've forgotten everything again. I remind them of their different movements, and they immediately take them on again.
Also, the staging of the rhythmic speech piece needed to be called to mind again. The solo appearance of the birds before the farmer, caused by the other animals, worked quite nicely. The children who are not playing right then observe with interest. In the end, they all deserved an applause for their performance in that scene.
For the last conversation of the birds, the children conceive ideas right away and are eagerly trying them out. Now we've got to quickly repeat the end of the story, and spontaneously we sing Sali Bonani at the end.
Of course, we also practice the order of applause, but the children are extremely excited after the long rehearsal for which they had concentrated so intensively. Accordingly, the transition to the break is extremely lively, but our farmer still takes his time to bring his things in order.
After a break, we set out and go through the neighborhood to invite our audience. We sing our song, and the 2 drums wander from child to child. That's not easy for all the children, and over again there's some fighting over the instruments. In the end, many parents and siblings follow us to the performance, and it can now begin. Once upon a time in Africa, there lived 5 colorful birds. Every day they fly to the farmer to sing and dance for him.
I want to fly to the farmer. I want to get all the food.
The white bird flies to the farmer when the 2 snakes are swimming in the branches.
The blue bird flies to the farmer when the crocodile opens his jaws wide.
The red bird flies to the farmer when the elephant is trumpeting.
The yellow bird flies to the farmer when the monkeys jump from tree to tree.
The green bird flies to the farmer when the lion yawns and dreams of the moon.
This evening, the birds have to go to sleep hungry.
The next morning, the birds are ashamed, and they admit to each other what they've done.
Then they decide to fly together to the farmer and to sing and dance for him.
Everyone is happy about the successful performance and go merrily on their way.
We have all deserved refreshments, but then there needs to be a critical review. What was successful? What could we observe of the children? Georgiana begins.
I think it was better than I thought yesterday or today because they really enjoyed the whole story, and I like it because they knew birds to eat and to talk the birds.
They started really to act and was the bird.
Acting and performing in front of an audience was enjoyable to them. It was something new. On the one side exciting, and on the other side satisfying.
I think the parents enjoyed it.
And even fathers came, and this is not the frustration of mine, but fathers usually don't go to plays of their children. We all know that. It's not just me, right? And there were 2 dads.
Edward stresses that the most important thing is to give the parents an impression that it is possible to teach the children something without screaming at them or even beating them.
That's actually the best result, the one that you underlined earlier. How the parents will see how we make the kids do complicated things just by talking nicely, or and maybe some gears will start to work in the parents' minds, and maybe I don't need to hit him in the head with my feet all the time to make him work, or maybe there are other
Yeah, always the short moments, for example, when the birds come to the farmer alone, and they always looked at me, and I played the recorder, and then I was singing, and I was looking to them, and they took it over, and then they did it alone. So this was such a moment of learning, of sharing something. And the parents could see that, yeah. So I didn't say, sing, yeah. Just I sang, you sing, and they were looking at me, open, with a laugh, yeah, with a smile on their face.
educators were so excited when they told us how fascinated the children in the audience were watching and how enthusiastically the children were performing.
And you will see the children will come and will ask you, can you play it again? But because now they know it, and I'm sure that some will come and ask for repetition.
In the future, it would be desirable to have a musical suitcase in each of the social centers, which could be used spontaneously whenever the moment was fitting to have musical events possible on demand. Finally, we point to the stories of Swimmy, Frederick, and the Wild Things, which we played with the children last year in the 3 villages. They were translated into Romanian. They lent themselves to continuous work.
Go big. Just go big.
Jedes Lachen, jeder Tag, der aufgehellt wird, diese 2-3 Stunden mit uns zusammen, kann sein, dass die sehr, sehr lange leuchten für die Kinder. Es ist wie ein, ja, wie soll man sagen, wie ein kleiner Schatz, der gesetzt wird und der immer da ist. Man kann sich daran erinnern und das ist wichtig.
Und für mich ist ganz entscheidend auch der Grund, warum ich immer wieder Lust habe, herzukommen. Es hat viel damit zu tun, dass ich mich so unglaublich privilegiert sehe in dem Leben, das ich habe, das ich führen kann, das ich immer führen konnte. Auch die Kindheit, die ich hatte, die Sicherheit, die Geborgenheit, die Familie rund um mich herum. Und nachdem ich das hier kennengelernt habe, einfach auch gesehen habe, wie die Kinder hier teilweise leben, da habe ich einfach das Gefühl gehabt, ein bisschen was davon zurückzugeben. Und zwar da, wo es hingehört, nämlich den Kindern direkt was mit Kindern zu machen. Nicht zu fragen, was hat das morgen noch für einen Sinn oder an was werden sie sich erinnern, sondern nur der positiv erlebte gemeinsame Augenblick, der zählt.